Hi friends, and thanks for being here. I'm Anna and I'm really thankful that you're here with me today. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the overwhelming support I've received after my comeback video, after my big break. I cannot respond to all the comments. I wish I had time to respond to all of your comments because they've been amazing and overwhelming and humbling, and I just want to say thank you that even though I'm not able to reply to each one of you, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you taking time to comment and encourage me. So we are going to do some crafting today. And then, like I said, my new thing is if you want to stick around, we will chat about life and something going on at the end. So I hope you'll stick around today. So what we're going to talk about today is I know the holiday season is upon us. Some of us are still working on holiday cards. This is the time of year where, for the most part, most of us are sending out the most cards. Those of you who do send out holiday cards and maybe trying to make a lot of cards at one time. Now, some of you you're so organized and you make like a few each month throughout the year. So you're all ready when the holidays come. Some of us are not that organized. I was just working on mine the other day, and a lot of the tips I'm going to share in this video are things I was doing the other day to get mine ready. But what I'm going to share is tips for mass producing cards. So you can use this now. You can use it when you're making lots of birthday cards anytime throughout the year that you're making several cards at once. The tips I'm going to share can really help you make it easier, make it more enjoyable, and save some time. So we're going to start. The first few tips, I don't really have anything to show you, so let's just start talking and then we'll flip my camera once I have some things to show you. So tip number one, clear some space. You want some space on wherever you are working. So wherever you do your crafting, if like the craft stuff piles up and creeps in and you don't have as much space available, I think it probably happens to all of us, but when you're getting ready to make several cards or maybe even a lot of cards, clear some space. Now, if you don't have space in your craft area for like a big open space, then prep your materials and then you can go to your kitchen table or wherever you have some nice open space, your kitchen counter, and actually spread out once you have everything prepped and ready. So get some space ready so you have space to spread out. My second tip is sometimes we have the notion if we're making a bunch of cards that they all have to look the same. That's not the case at all. So if you have that idea in your head, then get rid of that. They do not have to look the same. So when we're cutting papers, if we're going to put them in the background, they don't all have to take up the whole card. If you get to the edge of your paper and you have a smaller piece, that can go on one of your cards too. They don't all have to look the same. Die cutting, I'll show this to you once we flip the camera around. But with die cuts, let's say you want to stamp something onto a die cut. Maybe it's going to look like this, and it could be your greeting, it could be some flowers, whatever it is. Those die cuts do not have to all be the same size. So you may have shape dies that are like different sizes. Use several of those. You can use 3 circles and 3 squares. You have 3 different sizes, 2 different shapes. So each card will be a little bit different, which is kind of a cool thing in a way. And it saves you time because you can run all of those dies through your machine at the same time and not have to crank once for every single card, if that makes sense. Tip number 3, keep it simple. You are going to see a perfect recipe that we're going to put together as we go through these tips of cards that are really simple to create. We have a background piece, we have a decorative strip, we have a punched greeting, we'll have some embellishments. Really easy recipe, but keep it simple and choose products that are going to make it easy for you. So you're going to see the paper I'm putting in the background is gorgeous. Like, it is pretty all by itself. I don't have to do anything to it. It provides lots of interest. So choose products that are going to do the work for you and keep your design simple. Number 4, we're going to batch prepare things. So instead of like cutting a card base and folding it and then cutting another one and folding it, and then we're going to cut some paper and do some punching, we're going to do all of one step at one time. So we're going to score all of our card bases. Next, we're going to cut all of our card bases. Next, we're going to cut all of our paper pieces. We'll do all of our stamping at one time, all of our punching at one time. That saves a lot of time. So I'm going to flip my camera around here and start showing you some things, and we'll work through the rest of these tips. Okay, so we just talked about batch preparing. Now, along with that is my 5th tip, which is to stack things. Okay, stack things as we are preparing them. So let me show you an example of this. Okay, we're going to make 4 cards here together. I've got 2 different card base colors. Just because you're doing this all at the same time, like I said, they don't have to be the same. So we're going to end up with 2 cards that are balmy blue, 2 that are blueberry bushel, and tip 5 is stacking. So what does that mean? You can actually stack your card bases as you are scoring and cutting them. I'm sure you've probably stacked paper when you cut, maybe, but you may not realize you can stack them when you're scoring as well. Now, if I'm doing more than 1 at a time, I do try to press fairly hard. When I'm normally scoring, I don't really feel like I have to press. If I'm doing 2, I do press pretty hard. And let's see if you can see this. So here's the one on top. But can you also see that this one is scored as well? You may not be able to see that. But when I fold it, I will show you so that you can see that it does fold properly. And then, so I do on my, well, typically I'll do 2 at a time. I'll score them. I'll turn them sideways, cut them. When I'm cutting through 2 layers at a time, I do like to run this up and back and then pull this off to the side just to make sure we did get a good cut all the way through before we move this one. That way we can run that along and cut it again if it didn't cut through the first time, okay? So you can stack your paper to score. You can stack your paper to cut. You can stack your paper to punch. It depends on the thickness of your paper and the quality of your punches. But there are times that I punch through 2 layers at a time to save some time. And then die cutting. Die cutting is another thing that a lot of times, if I'm mass producing things, I will die cut through 2 layers at a time. And believe it or not, these dies with the stitching and the dots and all the little decorative extras, that does pass through to the 2nd layer typically. I wasn't sure if it would when I first started trying it, but here's what I was trying to show you at first. If you want to have a die cut on the front of your card of, let's say, a basic shape, and you can choose different shapes from the same set, different sizes, and then each one will be just a little bit different. So these are from the Nested Essentials die set I really like. I've been using it quite a bit, but I just thought I would show that. So we're batch preparing. You can stack things to get your pieces prepared a little bit faster. Now let's talk about embossing, okay? So something I like to do with embossing, I do stack papers. A lot of times I do 2 at once. So this is an embossing folder called Time Worn Type. It has this really distressed typing that I really like. It's so basic that you can use it with pretty much everything. So thought this would be a good one for this card. So I embossed 2 pieces at the same time. And then here is what I love to do. I did this on my Christmas cards this year. And let's say I want a piece that is going to be, a lot of times I'll do strips. So I'll do 1-inch strips, and if I want to, I can even stack and cut these at the same time. So let's do that. So I want 1-inch strips of embossing. When you add something simple, something decorative, even like a small decorative piece, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here. Even like a small decorative piece, like a piece with embossing, or a piece like glimmer paper. I love to add just a little bit of sparkle to a card because it adds so much, even if it's just a little piece. So with the embossing, I love to put embossing on my cards, but to crank a whole piece through for every single card can take some time. It can make your arm tired, you know? You may have to take a break, but if you do it this way, you can emboss whole pieces, trim them down to small strips, and you'll see how we are going to add these to the cards. So that was tip number 6 with embossing. Tip number 7 is, my friends, If you watch along with the things I share, you know I love punches. I love punches. I love it more than punches. I love coordinating stamp and die. What am I saying? Stamp and punch bundles. Here we go. Okay. Here is a stamp set. I'm actually using 2 of the stamps out of it. I'm using this Celebrate stamp, and I trimmed just a teeny bit the extra little lip that sticks out from the edges of your stamps that doesn't actually stamp anything. I trimmed a teeny bit off of the cupcake so that I could fit them both on my block at the same time. I could do all my stamping at the same time. There's a bonus tip so that I don't have to stamp that outer one and then the inner one. So since we have 2 colors of card bases, we are going to do 2 colors of these as well. So I'll do 2 that are balmy blue. Normally I would clean my stamp between colors, but when you go from a lighter color to a darker color, similar color, a darker version of blue, you don't really need to clean your stamp off. So here I have 4 of those stamped. So when you are creating your cards, die cuts are just gorgeous, and you know, you can use as many die cuts as you want on these cards that you're creating. But if you're really trying to save some time, make it a little bit simpler, punches are where it's at. So here we will just go along and punch these out. That one wants to hang on. It doesn't want to let go. There we go. Now I'll mention this. Let's say you decided you wanted to color these cupcakes in. I don't see any need for that. I like to keep things simple when I can. But if you want to, I know some of you love coloring. Take these, sit in front of the TV. If you live with somebody and they get lonely when you're in your craft room, I hear this from some of you. You know, take these, sit in front of the TV, hang out with them. You can do your coloring and do some of this when you're not in your craft area as well. Okay, so we have this ready. So tip number 7 was punches. Now tip number 8, it is time to spread things out. Okay, we're getting ready to start assembling. We don't quite have, I think we have everything ready except for the embellishments. So here is, before we spread everything out, I do want to go ahead and fold my card bases. I have learned this and I keep thinking of bonus tips. So you're going to get a whole bunch in here. When I have discovered this lately, when I put a piece on the inside of my card. So, you know, I put a piece in here with my inner greeting and then I sign it. So you can actually put those on before you fold your cards. If you do, you just have to be careful when you put the front on, you put the front on the right spot and you don't stick it on the wrong spot. So if you put your inside piece here, you will put your front piece, you flip it over and it's on the opposite side. So your front piece would be here. And then you can actually fold them last if you want to, or you can put your inner piece on and then you can fold it. That really, depending on how many you're making, that can really save a lot of time, because after you fold it, then you have to open it back up, put that inner piece on, fold it back closed again. If you put that inner piece on first and then fold it, then you just don't have to open it back up. So let's go ahead and fold these, and I will forever give credit to my friend Barb for this tip. So there you just saw, that was my blueberry bushel one. That was the lower one when I was scoring. It didn't fold quite as easy as my other ones, but it definitely does still have a score line on it, and it did know where to crease itself there. So my friend Barb shared this with me. She just folds all of her cards like this, and then actually she goes like this. She just pinches, and they're like pretty much laying flat just like that, right? But I usually, just to get them laying really nice and flat, run my bone folder over the whole thing. I do this with stacks of like 10 cards, 20 cards. So that is a great way to get them folded easily. And I realized I didn't cut my paper. So let's cut my paper, and then I believe we will be ready to spread everything out. So I thought these were all, okay. What we're gonna do, this is 4 pieces. Let's see if we can cut through 4 pieces, right? I like a good challenge. Okay, so I want these, I know I said at the beginning, your pieces don't all have to be the same, just because for these, they are going to be the same. See, I thought I could cut through 4 at the same time. I just wasn't positive because I hadn't done it yet, but it worked. So I'm going to cut these to 4 by 5 1/4, just a basic size that takes up almost all of the card front, but leaves that little border around the edge. So these papers are from a new set called Meandering Meadows. I absolutely love them. Actually, I think the last or 2 videos ago, my first one when I came back, featured some of the same paper. These are just absolutely gorgeous, and you will see they do the work for you. So choose those products that are going to make things simple for you. So here is where we spread it out, and you will be able to see part of this. I'll try to keep as much here on the screen as possible that you can see. But what I would do so let me show you where we are headed. We're going to put the designer paper on. We will put a strip of the embossed pieces. We will put our punched piece, and then I'm going to share some tips for embellishing. And while we're at it, I'll share some tips for using your adhesives as well. So the embellishments and the adhesives are my last 2 tips, but we're going to have quite a few tips here mixed in. So here is what I would do. I would spread out, and there are times I have like 10 or 20 of these that I'm putting adhesive on all of them at the same time. So let me share, depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I do different things with my adhesives, but you want to make sure you have adhesives that work well for you, whatever that is. Maybe it's your tape. I love my Seal Plus. It works very well for me. Sometimes I use glue instead, because sometimes on these big pieces, I find that glue actually works easier. So here's a couple of my tips for adhesives. I'll lay them out on my pieces in a big row, and I like to just go straight down the edge on all of them and apply that adhesive. Now, this works a little bit better if you lay your rows out vertically and you run it this way back towards you. Here it's a little bit more awkward for my arm, but that's okay. You can see it a little bit better this way. So that's one way. And then come along and do your other side. Now, sometimes I prefer glue. So when we do our embossed pieces, I will show you, I'll show you my tip with the glue. Here's a tip. If you ever have problems with getting your pieces on crooked, the way I usually most of the time get mine on straight is I lay them on where I think they go, and I don't press anything down until I know it's in the spot where I want it. So I think it looks good there. It is mostly straight. Nothing is perfect with handmade cards, and it shouldn't be. So wait till it looks good and then go ahead and press that down. As you can see, I'm not worrying about which piece goes on which color. If you stick all with the same color, it can save time. Sometimes when I'm doing different colors, then I find myself spending time on like, oh, well, which one looks the best? Or did I punch the right number of this color? But these all look good together, so I'm not really worrying about it too much. Okay, let's look at our embossed pieces. And I did create extras. I only need 4, but we ended up with several because I wanted to show you how you can emboss 2 layers. I was going to show you how on that embossing, when you do 2 layers, typically the top layer is just a little bit more detailed and more intricate than the bottom layer. I believe this one was from my top piece and this was from my bottom piece, and I don't know if you can see the difference there, but this one is just a tiny bit more detailed. So not very noticeable. When you send these out, no one will ever know the difference. So let's do glue, because there are times I use my glue on my big pieces too. But I just find glue is so fast. And this glue is my absolute favorite. You don't have to get it right at the edge. A little tip so that you don't get those blobs oozing out the side is start to dispense it somewhere in the center of your paper and then go around the outside afterwards, because that blob always comes at the beginning, right? Always comes at the beginning. Okay, I better scoot these out of the way so that I can pull these on the screen and you can see what's happening. So this is like a classic Anna card design. If you want to know like a classic, simple, I have to send out a bunch of cards for whatever, like for Christmas, or maybe I'm making a bunch of thank yous when I send out my monthly thank yous. Oh, I cannot cover those flowers up down there. So sometimes we make things a little bit different because I can't cover up those cone flowers. I love them. So we'll put our strips on here. Now we will put our punched pieces on shortly, but before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about embellishments, and let's talk about ribbon first. So here's some ribbon that I thought coordinated nicely. This is one of my favorite things about Stampin' Up! Products, by the way. I don't mention this very often, but if you struggle with things coordinating, oh friends, our products could really help you, because everything color coordinates. We have like 50 colors and everything comes in those 50 colors. And when you get this blue, it's going to match the cardstock and the ribbon and the designer, all the things. So really makes things easy. Before I started using Stampin' Up, I used to spend so much time trying to find things that coordinate. So if you do that, I feel your pain because it's painful. Okay, so ribbon. We're going to put tags on somewhere near the strip. We will vary them probably on each card. But let's say you want some embellishments, because it's pretty simple card design, which is awesome, and you can leave it just as it is. But if you want something a little extra, ribbon is a great option. So here are some options for simple ribbons that you can add. We're not talking about tying bows, because if you're great at tying bows, you tie all the bows you want. I love bows. I don't have a problem tying bows, but for those of you who do, or you just don't want to spend the time, here are some options for ribbon. Put a little adhesive down where your tag is going to be placed on top eventually, and do a loop back and forth. Or you can do a bigger loop back and forth again, and have like a little, I love to do little swooshies like this with my ribbon. I think I just made that word up. And then, okay, so that's one option. Just a flat, straight piece of ribbon is an option. So what I would do in this case, I would angle one end. I would angle this end the same way. Put the tag on top, and you just have a nice piece of ribbon across there, okay? Or let's say you really like the bow look, but you're like not interested in the bow, doing all the bow tying. Do knots, my friend. Knots are nice too. So you can do, I need to trim the other edge, but you can do a knot like that. Something I do when I'm like, oh, that just doesn't look like enough. Well, I'm doubling up my ribbon here and I'm tying a knot with 2 pieces of ribbon. Okay, and then we can trim this off. We can trim up the ends however we want. Trim this so they fall apart. Okay, then we have a little double knot that looks like a little bit more. So there are a few tips with ribbons if you are wanting to add some ribbon or something a little bit extra. Let's go ahead and put our tags on. One more adhesive tip for you. Okay, we're going to do what we always do. We lay them all out, or at least a bunch. We lay a bunch of them out at the same time, upside down, and we're going to apply our adhesives. This time, let's talk about a tip for dimensionals. Foam dimensionals. Love these dimensionals. I know you all love these dimensionals because I see lots of orders come in for them. But this little tool right here, my next couple of tips have to do with this tool. This is the Take Your Pick tool. If you have fingers that don't work as well as you would like them to, this is a great little tool for like a million different purposes. I have a video where I talk about lots of ways to use this thing. I will link to that in the video description below. One other thing, I get a lot of questions about all those lines on my trimmer. I'm going to link to the video on those lines on my trimmer in the video description below as well. And all the products I use, We'll have links down there if you are interested in any of them. So as you can see, I am poking the dimensionals with my Take Your Pick tool, and I don't always do this when I'm crafting on my own, but I always like to share it because it is a good tip. You can lift and remove that paper backing in the same motion when you just applied it. So now that I'm down to my last one, I'll do it the right way and I'll show you. So before you even lift up, it takes a little practice, but you just have to like kind of press forward before you lift up very much, and that paper backing comes off. If you struggle with paper backing for these things, I hear you. I don't too much on these big ones. On our mini dimensionals, I have a harder time, but you can remove all these with this handy tool. Makes it so easy. And then we will have all of these ready to flip them over and attach them, and we will be very, very close to being done with these cards. So as you can see, I decided I'm not going to put ribbon on these particular cards. We are keeping this simple. I want you to see how pretty and nice simple cards can be. We'll put this one over here, and I'll get these on here in a second so you can see a little better. Can we see all of them now? Okay. So there I have those on. Last step, let's put on some sequins. This is my choice way to add a little something extra to cards that cards that are simple. So this is the other end. This thing has lots of pieces. We have a spatula tip. There is a stylus, like the round ball tip I could put in here if I wanted to, but I love this little sticky end. There are, you can, the sticky end comes out, you can adjust it so that you can, when it gets not very sticky, you can dispense more, and then you can replace those eventually if you ever run out. But I think I lost my sequin somewhere. So I love to put these on this way. With sequins, sometimes I use the end of my scissors, or like you can use the tip like this to apply them as well. But with like gems, especially pearls or rhinestones, this little sticky end is absolutely perfect. Makes it so much quicker and easier. And you can see my traditional go-to embellishment pattern is 2 somewhere and 1 somewhere else, kind of spread out. So there we go, friends. Lots of tips on how to make lots of cards at once, make it a little quicker, a little easier, maybe a little bit more enjoyable for you. Now let's flip the camera around and we're gonna chat if you want to stick around. So here we are. Here's where it gets scary for me, because I told you I feel like I am supposed to start talking about my life. And I got some comments from some people that I shouldn't feel obligated to share anything about my life that I don't want to. And I don't feel obligated, but I feel like the Lord has been leading me to share that, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So here we are. We're going to try it out and see how it goes. But one of the reasons I feel like I do need to share is because I have gotten a big sense that, like, lots of us are not okay, and lots of us are not talking about it. When I'm talking to people one-on-one in situations where it feels comfortable and like I kind of open up and then they kind of open up, I'm just finding out that people are struggling. And so what I want to ask you today is, are you okay? Are you okay? And I want you to know that I care about you. And this may sound dumb, or I don't know how it sounds, but like, yeah, I haven't met most of you who watch along with my videos, but you're a human and I care about you. And there are other people who care about you. I know it's so easy in this world to think that, like, nobody cares, or nobody's checked on me, or I reached out to this person and they ignored me, or whatever. I think it's very easy to think that nobody cares. And that is so far from the truth. No matter who you are, where you are, how many or how few people you have in your life, people care about you. And sometimes I think we just need to stop and evaluate like how we are. I know we're in all different stages of life. I'm in the stage of life with kids at home, several businesses, a busy husband, this stamping thing I love to do and I love to share with all of you. And like, there's a lot going on. So so for me, it's very easy to bury my head and like, just keep going. Just get through the next thing. We have 400 things going on this week. We have 12 things going on tomorrow. This morning, I delivered the pies for the PTO chili supper tonight. I went and I bought duck eggs because one of the people in the house cannot eat chicken eggs. I have to like drive half an hour to go buy duck eggs. And we're going to try this special feed with our chicken eggs to see if that makes a difference on being able to eat chicken eggs. So I went and I bought the special feed and I messed up. So I called the chiropractor. I need to go see the chiropractor later. And like, there's a million things. So for some of us, that's where we get stuck and we don't stop and think about like, how am I? Am I okay? And this is where I got to a while back is I just kept going. Like things weren't going very well. I just kept going. Sometimes we need to stop and really evaluate what is going on and how am I and what do I need to do for myself? Like, is something that is going on in my life not working? If that's the case, what can I do about it? Do I need to reach out to somebody? Do I need to call and get some counseling? Do I need to reach out to somebody at church? Do I need to ask at church like what resources are available for whatever I'm going through or whatever it is? Just reach out and talk to a neighbor. Sometimes what I've found in my struggles is what helps me the most is when I take that extra effort, even though I don't feel like it, I'm tired and life is hard and whatever. But like, I take some extra effort and I call up the neighbor and ask if I can take a meal over to them. And like, that is what I needed to feel better about myself sometimes. But I just encourage you to stop and think about where you're at and what is going on with your life. And I know a lot of you are hurting. I've gotten messages from so many of you, heard some of your stories. I'm sure your stories are so much bigger than the little bit that you've told me. But where are you today? How are you? Is there something little or big that you can do to maybe reach out and get something that you might need from someone? Sometimes I think it's just a conversation with another human. When I just talk to somebody else and I realize, oh, they're going through hard things too. And like, it gets my head out of like what's just going on here in our life with our family. And just a conversation with someone can make such a big difference. So I want you to know I care about you. I want you to be okay, but I know a lot of us are not okay. And so what is it that we can start doing to help ourselves? I have become really passionate about like wellness. And I mentioned in my last video, I'm on this special diet, like nutrition and how we take care of ourselves and just wellness in general. And there's so many things we can be doing that we often aren't to help ourselves. So little step, stop and evaluate how you're doing. And if something isn't working, what can you maybe do a little bit different? Just reach out and call somebody. Tell somebody you need some help. Tell somebody you could just use somebody to talk to or whatever. And you know what you're going to find? If the first person you reach out to isn't supportive, try not to be heartbroken. It can be really painful when people don't respond. But reach out to somebody else because a lot of other people are in the same boat we are. People are looking for connection and people are looking for somebody to connect with, somebody to talk to. And the word that's coming to mind is commiserate. We can feel, several of you commented on my first video that when we share, I love this, when we share our sorrows, we divide them. So we like divide the hurt and the pain amongst ourselves. But when we share our joys, we multiply them. And I love that. I've never heard that before, but I think it's absolutely true. So I hope you're okay, friends. I will see you next time when I'm back helping you to hand make with love.